Assalamu alaikum everybody. I hope you all are doing super well. Am I audible? Kindly let me know in the chat box. I've turned it open and sorry for the slight delays of 15 minutes. I hope you all are aware. I had my final today, and so because of that final, I had to sort of pull an all-nighter last night. Even though the final went, I don't know how, but yeah, it was a very cooked final for me. But apparently, we are done with it. So sorry for the slight delays, and of course, I just wanted everybody to know that my DMs have been flooded since last night. Okay, so I don't know how many pending DMs. I have some 344 pending DMs at this point. You guys might be even able to see it up here on my phone. So yeah, I don't. Yeah, so 344. Okay, so it's like low key very crazy, but I'm gonna try my best to answer as many of them as possible. Um, but the thing is, we have the session starting from today. We're gonna have 4 sessions, inshallah. Today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and of course the day after that, till the 17th, inshallah. We're gonna do walaikum assalam, a few 15 markers together. We're gonna understand what an examiner expects from us when we talk about 15 markers, and we're going to learn how to solve 15 markers and in particular how to prepare for paper number 2 in these days. So without wasting any further time, let's jump into the class content. Let me just send one last message for anybody who might want to join in because they joined in and however I wasn't able to be live at that point. So just give me a minute. Walaikum assalam, walaikum assalam, walaikum assalam. So let me start screen sharing and then we can start off, okay? All right, I hope you guys can see the screen now. Perhaps rather than doing it up here, we already have a lot of stuff. Let's go into the practice booklet and do it up here somewhere. So the first goal for today is to first and foremost understand what an examiner wants from us when solving the 15 marker. So I'm gonna go through the entire structure as to what needs to be followed. Okay, sir, I barely know. Yeah, I'm gonna come to all these points. Okay, so don't worry. I'm gonna tell you how to prepare for the exam the right way. Even if you're just starting off, even if you're cooked, whatever happened, नहीं पढ़ा, ज़्यादा पढ़ा है, नहीं पढ़ा, जो भी किया, we're gonna do everything in a very systematic manner, ensuring that we are fully prepared to ace the exam, inshallah. Okay. So let me just set up the chat box on the side on my phone so that I don't miss upon any of your key messages. I'm gonna come to everything, okay? So if you guys want to share the link with your friends and anybody else, you may do that right now because after that people will then be complaining, sir, I cannot access the last 10-minute content. So yeah, then you won't be able to access the last 10 minutes content. Okay, let's start off with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So just a second. We are starting. Let me send a message. Someone that day complains, sir, आप message भेज दिया करें because we sometimes do not know that you are starting off. So it helps a lot. So okay, we are done with sending the messages. Let's start. Sir, वो grade वाला question करवा दूंगा, सब करवाऊंगा. Don't worry. That's on the plan list. All right, let's start off then. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So first and foremost thing, congratulations, paper number 1 has been completed, and luckily the paper did not get leaked, which was another good thing to know. And we sort of had a really good session, and the best part was, alhamdulillah, the topics which were being commonly tested, we did a lot of their concepts already beforehand in the topical session. So yeah, so that's great to know that you all are sort of aware that how do we need to go with it. Now just a few pointers. The paper which we had that day, paper number 1, okay, according to what I feel like, the threshold has to be around 45 46 for an A grade ideally, okay, which means apparently that any student scoring around 55 to 56, you are inshallah good to go for an A star, given that you also score 10 marks above P2's A threshold. Okay, you're inshallah good for an A star if you score 10 marks above P2's A threshold, which is something we all need to focus upon. Now paper number 2's threshold usually lies in the range of 44 to like 47 for an A, And let me tell you that getting a 60 is like very halwa thing, very easy thing. Which means that anybody scoring 60 plus, inshallah, in paper number 2 can have a very good chance to score an A star, given that you scored around 56, 57. For anybody who might have messed up paper number 1, God forbids, let's say you scored less than 55, you guess what, you still have a great chance. Like, you need to score around 115 to 120 to get an A star, like in most of the cases. Okay, so we're going to take our assumption to be 120. If you scored, let's say, around 55, this basically means that you need to score how much? You need to score 65 marks. Now this is if the paper number 2 was very easy and that the threshold went very high. On average, the threshold is going to be around 115. So if the threshold is around 115, given that we also get the paper number 2 of a difficulty having a threshold of 45, you can get around 56, 57, and that would be more than enough. But now comes the main question, sir, how do I prepare for it? Now, chapter number 7 and chapter number 8. We have uploaded the playlists entirely from our October-November 2025 session on our YouTube channel. Okay, you open up our YouTube channel, you go to the playlist sections, and you find videos for chapter 7 and chapter 8. Now, if your concepts are weak, which means that if you are even unable to solve those basic questions, you don't understand how they work, even to an extent that you are unable to do anything like arrays, you are unable to do anything like functions, you are unable to do anything like bubble sorts or any sort of complex algorithms, it's mandatory that you first and foremost start with these videos. Go and watch these videos to understand what are the concepts that exists. So 110, given that if the threshold for paper 2 goes low, and if the threshold goes high, it's going to be around 120. In most of the cases, the threshold is going to be between 115 to 120, given that the paper was also fine. Okay, so yeah. So aim for at least 115 plus. Okay, that's my minimum requirement. Again, definitely we cannot say anything. If paper 2 came easy, the threshold could be around 122, but in most of the cases the threshold has to lie around 115 to 120 if the grade difficulty, paper difficulty was normal. Okay, again, it's not like some promises I'm making so that later on you guys are telling me, sorry, you said this one, you said this one. But yeah, now the thing is, if your chapter 7 and chapter 8 concepts are weak, you could have watched those playlists, and that will be more than enough for you. We don't have chapter number 9 and 10 content uploaded on our YouTube channel. That's not available, at least for now. Okay, yeah, 60 plus is really good. 60 plus is really good, mashallah. Okay, so 9 and 10 is not available. You gotta have to study that on your own. Sorry for that though. But the main thing is that if anybody masters these 2 topics, guess what? You're already scoring around 50 marks. You're scoring around 50 marks. Which means that or perhaps even 60 marks. The max that can come from chapter number 8 and chapter number 9 is of content of, let's say, 15 marks. And these 15 marks are the easiest to gain. You just need to practice a bit of them and you'll be very much good to go. You'll be very much good to go. And now the thing is, if let's say you score 60 marks from here, then this means that we have sort of already met the criteria which we needed to score an A star, right? Now, a lot of students up here would be saying, sir, I'm a 15 marker, neither we are cooked with the 15 markers, help us with that. Now, let me tell you, getting the first 60 out of 60 is very doable. So when you watch these playlists, they are basically going to help you understand how do you basically get 60 by 60 in the first 60 mark section. And then comes up the crazy 15 marker, which we're going to discuss today. And in this 15 marker, a lot of you I know at this point are like, sir, we're going to leave it blank. But you don't have to leave it blank. I'm going to explain today how does an examiner mark your 15 marker. We're going to explore what are the things which are required from you and how, even though you might not be getting a perfect 15 by 15, you might get something like 7 by 15. You might get something like 10 by 15. Now remember, in the 15 marker, the game is not to score full. The game is to obtain as much marks as possible. So we don't have to leave it empty. We need to obtain as much as possible. And for that, it's mandatory to understand how does your 15 marker get marked. So apart from that, today 14th, then 15th, 16th and 17th. These 4 days we're going to do 4 separate 15 markers, inshallah. 4 separate 15 markers. Plus, I'm going to be uploading, just because a lot of the students have been complaining about, sir, unable to do trace table questions, unable to do logic gates questions, and blah 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 stuff. What you're gonna do is you're gonna upload two fully solved papers, fully solved P2 papers, inshallah. Okay. One of them I am thinking of doing the October-November session, so that you understand that there was a question regarding the 2D bubble sort. So you also understand that one is going to be that, and let's see what other paper I upload. But that will be there to help you understand how do you solve a paper in particular. Okay. So that's the whole goal for today, and that's the whole agenda for how we need to prepare. What do you need to do? So you guys need to watch all of these stuff. You need to watch all of my content, and of course remember, paper number 2 is not something which will come to your brain just by watching videos. You need to do endless level of practice. So open up those booklets, open up those papers, open up whatever you might want to do, but practice as much as you can. Okay, practice as many questions as you can. The more you practice, the better you're going to perform. And for everybody who is sort of saying, I know the paper is on 17th, but I will not be able to take class on 18th and 19th due to my own final preparations. So I have my own university finals. For that reason, I might not be able to take a class on the 18th and 19th, but I'm going to try my best to accommodate you guys in the 4 days we have before that. Okay. So yeah, so now if you have to practice a lot, the more you practice, the better chances. One other tip: if you are unable to solve a question, if you, let's say, get stuck at one point, don't be okay, you may ask it in our community group. Okay, so we have the community GCs, you can ask them there. We have a lot of helping friends, my TAs are there, you can ask them. Okay, if not, the best suggestion in my opinion would be that if you're unable to understand some question, make use of AI. Okay, make use of AI is your best grading tool. AI is your best helper. AI is that one person who is going to ensure that you cook that paper. Okay, so you don't understand the marking scheme, why a person implemented loop like this, go take a picture, paste it in an AI model. If you don't know what AIs you can use, you might first and foremost go for ChatGPT, but then ChatGPT has a limit. If ChatGPT limits gets exhausted, you have Google Gemini. If Gemini, for instance, does not work, you can go with Claude. If Claude does not work, go with DeepSeek. So you have sort of 4 AI models which are foremost best out there. Okay, how can you join the community GCs? So if you came up from my Instagram page, if not, you can go to my Instagram page. It's Code Catalyst _ okay, and there in the bio you're gonna find the link to the WhatsApp community. If still not, you can drop us a DM and our team can send you what do we call it, a message including the the whole procedure of joining the group. Okay, so it's free WhatsApp community group. And yeah, just know that Gemini does not have a limit, which is really good about it, but sometimes Gemini does not respond accurately to what we want, so you can go with the other ones. Okay, so that's the whole method, that's the whole methodology we all need to follow. Coming to the class content now, without wasting any further time, let's jump into what an examiner wants from us. Okay, so your 15 marker has to be that one question which I know everybody is really scared of. But what if I tell you that if we solve 4 15 markers consecutively, breaking everything down into small chunks, inshallah, you all would be able to clearly ace your paper, inshallah, on the 20th. It's not that difficult. Okay, the 15 marker has a bit of a strategy which people are unable to understand just because they were never taught the strategy. But for the students who have been a part of my past paper session, they're going to understand that almost every time the same thing is repeating. It's like everything is repeating. Only the question gets changed. You access the arrays the same way, you deal and change the values the same way. There is nothing changing at all. It's like everything is sort of same, and we just need to follow it up. How long will the stream be? Most probably it's going to go till 7:30, inshallah. Okay, so for a 15 marker, understand that you have 6 marks. The division of 15 marker is being done in a way where you divide it first into 6 marks. A lot of people are not even aware of this. Okay, and then you have marks divided into 9. Now what we always think is that, sir, whatever we're going to write the code and blah 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 stuff, we're going to write the correct code and only then we are going to get marks. But understand that the examiner divided this stuff so perfectly that they were like that if you write the correct code, so your programming code, you're going to get marks out of the 9 marks section. So you write the programming code, you make use of programming techniques. When I say techniques, this basically means that you write something like
for loop, some selection, some iteration like loops and stuff. If you make use of any of these concepts, you're going to be given marks out of these nights. The third community group is not full. We have created a CS community 3.0 group, so you can join that. Okay. Then let's say correct implementation of syntax, like you make sense, you write the correct code and everything. Okay, so if you do it the right way, if you write the code perfectly fine, the max you're gonna get is 9 marks. So all this question about, sir, that if I write the right, I wrote the correct code but I still did not get the full marks in exam, that's because you're going to be given the marks for coding from just the 9 marks aspect. Just another important point here to notice, a lot of people usually panic when they make a small mistake. However, the marking scheme, I don't want to open it up at this point because it's going to waste a lot of time, because it's really confusing. But the marking scheme clearly says ignore minor syntax errors, which means that if there are small mistakes as in you forgot writing end if, okay, you forgot writing something like that, you forgot writing end case, okay, such minor errors will be ignored. So the examiner is going to support you. He's not there to sort of poke you up. The examiner is always going to support you. They're going to help you with things you are weak with. Okay, so examiner knows that you're going to solve it in a time-based manner where you might not have a lot of time. So any small things are going to be ignored. But then the best part is that if 9 marks are for them, we have 6 marks for stuff which are easily obtainable. Which means that if we implement the 6 marks part and even write some bad sort of code which is not that fully working, but let's say it's partially working, we made use of some sort of for loops, we used some sort of if statements, we sort of manipulated the array some way or another, we're gonna get maybe like what, 3 marks out of 9. But guess what, if we can grab like let's say 5 marks out of 6 up here, that's meaning that basically tells us that congratulations, you literally scored 8 out of 15. So now if you get 8 out of 15 from here, and the first 50 marks section we score like 55, which is really doable. And for anybody who might not have prepared at all, if anybody have not prepared at all, even if you start today, in the next 4 or 5 days, if you lock in, you can clearly take your paper number 2 to the 55 out of marks section, okay, 60 section. So now if I add them up, we get what? We basically get 63 out of 75. What did I mention? Now if you get 63 up here, and let's say you got something like a 57 in your paper number 1. So now 57 plus 63 is what? 57 plus 63 is basically 120, which in most of the cases, inshallah, is going to be an A star. Unless paper number 2 comes out to be very easy, in which case we might have to say that the threshold might go to like 122, 123. But if the paper comes up that easy, you should also keep in your mind that then you won't be getting 3 up here, then you might be getting something like 8 out of 9, right? So it's very much doable to even have that craziest comeback, and you would be very much good to go. Now, important point, that sir, if 9 marks are for this, then what constitutes the remaining 6 marks? Now, people usually are unable to dissect this entirely. They just think that the 6 mark will mean that you need to write comments. Okay, it's not fully comments. Okay, the first part of it is writing comments, which means that whatever code you write, whatever statement you write, like let's say you're sort of implementing a for loop. So you add a comment, you say that for loop to do XYZ thing. Selection statement to select from menu. Option number 1 to, let's say, call a function XYZ. Option number 2 to do this thing. Option number 3 to do that sum. So all these things where you basically get the chance to sort of, what do we call it, implement a model where you sort of explain what's happening inside the code, that comes under the comment part. Okay, so comment is basically equals to your concept of writing what? It's basically equal to writing or explaining your code. Okay, so explaining your code. Then moving on, so there was a slight small amount of lag, sorry for that. So I was just saying that comments basically refer to you explaining the code. Whatever code you wrote, you sort of add a comment and you explain what's happening. How do you add a comment? We're going to look into that inshallah soon in the code too, but you add something like this, and then after that you write your comment. Okay, and then after that you're good to go. Secondly, the second thing which will get you those marks out of 6 are meaningful identifiers. people usually don't understand what does the word meaningful identifiers even mean. So let's say in your exam, you might be sort of creating some variable. You might be creating some variable, you might be creating some array. It's important that the name which you give to it, it should explain what value it has. For example, I have to create a variable which needs to store the average. Okay, so if I create a variable with the name of x and I do like x being assigned with total by 50, I know that this is basically going to be storing what? This is basically going to be storing the average of 50 students. That's pretty much clear. That's pretty much clear. But now the problem is that this x variable does not tell me, like if I just ask one of you, bro, what does this x variable store? Does it explain anything to you? No, right? It does not explain anything to you, which basically is a very big problem, because students at that point will unable to be understanding that, okay, what do I need to do? Let me change my internet, guys. I guess there's a small problem with the network. All right, we're back. I guess the internet has. I was on the wrong network, so sorry for that. All right, let's get back to the content. Okay, so I hope the problem will be solved at this point. Okay, so now when talking about this meaningful identifiers, what I basically mean to say is that if I have something like x, the word x, the variable x does not tell me what value it stores. It does not tell me that it's a variable which is storing an average. But now if I create a variable with the name of something like avg, and I write total by 50 inside it. Now, if I ask one of you that, okay, what do you think this AVG variable might be storing? It's pretty much, I'm muted. No, I'm not muted. I'm not muted. So it's pretty much evident from, you cannot hear me. Guys, I guess is the volume fine? If anybody could kindly confirm. Let me really. Oh yeah, yeah. You can hear me. I don't know. Maybe this is a bit delayed. Yeah. Is the ball? You can sort of reconnect, turn off the video, refresh the page, and then you'll be fine. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Just refresh, you'll be fine. All right, so yeah, when we make use of a word like average, this average now explains the purpose of the variable. It tells me what's happening, why are we, or what value are we storing inside. So whenever you create an array, this is for what? This is for everything like array, everything like. So whenever you sort of have an array, or you have something like constant, or you have something like a variable, whenever you are required to create one variable, constant, array, or whatsoever, always give it a meaningful name. Always give it a meaningful name. Give it a meaningful name. And when you give it a meaningful name, it's going to explain to the examiner what you were trying to do. And doing this alongside writing comments will get you a very high marks in the first 6 marks section. The last part in the first 6 marks section is basically the correct flow. By the correct flow, I mean that if you have to write a program that works in a way that you first take an input, and then that input needs to be validated, and then that input, once it has been validated, then it needs to be basically checked against options, and then you need to basically call functions to do stuff. So if you don't follow the exact order and you perhaps do it some other way around, in that case you might lose marks on the flow. So you need to ensure that your program follows a specific flow where it starts from the correct position, it moves on, moves on, moves on, and so on it goes. Now you might be wondering, sir, how will I get to know what the flow is going to be? So the 15 marker, whenever you sort of have a 15 marker, you're going to see that when they ask you to meet the requirements in the question, there are going to be 4 to 5 bullets. These bullet points are going to state do this, do that, do that, do that, do that. So try to follow the order. Sometimes the order is not fully required to be followed that way, but yeah, if you follow that order or if you read those statements clearly, you're going to clearly understand how you're going from the input part to the next part, to the next part, to the next part, and finally to the answer. And now if you do these three things perfectly fine, you're going to get 6 by 6 up here. Even if your flow part gets incorrect, but you sort of still make use of comments and meaningful. Guys, I'm going to come to the declaration part. Chill, please. Okay. So if you make use of comments and meaningful identifiers the right way, you're still going to get at least 4 to 5 marks, if not more, right? And likewise, if you write even partial correct code, not fully correct code, but you can still get like 4 to 5 marks from here. So like literally you're getting the chance to score 5 by 5, which is like literally 10 by 50. So our goal at this point is maximizing the marks. And if we do it this way, we are going to maximize our marks as much as possible to ensure that we don't get a 0. We at least get 9 plus marks out of 50. And inshallah, after these 4 classes, I'm confident that you all will be able to even get a perfect 15 by 15. Many of us will be inshallah getting 15 by 15 too. So is this Pakistani time? Yes, this is Pakistani time. 6:12 p.m. So moving on. Now let's start off with the 15 marker. Just a few questions to be taken. Sir, do we need to write detailed comments? No, you're required to write just one line. I'm going to write it. Okay. Now the main struggle which comes up throughout every question was regarding declaration. Sir, do we need to declare it or not? Now remember, if the question does not state, if not stated explicitly, clearly, if it does not state clearly, you are not required to declare. If not stated, you are not required to declare. This goes on for the entire paper number 2. Okay, entire paper number 2, you are not required to declare. Required to declare. If a question states that show the declaration of something, only in that case you are going to declare it. You can open up the marking schemes. I know your teachers have fed this idea into your minds that even outside the 15 marker in paper number 2, wherever you have to create a variable, you need to declare it. I know 90% of the teachers up here will be saying that this is what's happening. Okay, but remember, if the question does not clearly mention that you need to declare it, you are not required to declare it. And that's the reason if you open up the marking scheme for the first 60 marks question, it's very rare that they declare something. And they only declare it when the question clearly mentions that yes, you need to declare it. Same things are basically going to go for paper number 2's 15 marker 2. In the 15 marker, if the question clearly mentions that you are required to declare all the variables, only in that case you will be required to declare it. If the question says that you are not required to declare anything, then bro, please don't waste your time. Please don't waste your time on declaring it, because if you have that thing in your mind that I'm going to get 3 out of 15 for declaration for doing something which they clearly mentioned that we are not going to give you marks, you're going to just get 0 out of 15. So there are no marks for declaration unless stated. Now I'm going to, in the 4 questions which we are going to solve, I'm going to show you how do you get to know when to declare and when not to declare. So yeah, that's the whole point of these classes. But now, another point here to understand is, which a lot of students make blunder with, is that declaration and initializing are 2 different things. Okay, if a question says that you are not required to declare, this does not mean that you are not required to initialize. Okay, initialize basically means that, let's say now I want to create a variable and that variable is like total. So I don't need to create the variable, declare the variable total by writing declare total colon as integer, but rather I am required to basically sort of assign it some value. So this assigning of values, like let's say I'm starting the program, I'm going to assign it the value 0. This is basically what we call as initialization, and initialization is required. So for anybody who might have this thing in their mind, sir, declaration and initializing are the same thing, then it's not the same thing. Okay, these 2 are 2 different domains, and if a question does not ask you to declare it, this does not mean that you are not required to initialize it. Okay, you are required to initialize whatever variable you have, so keep this in your mind. Another third point is a good question, sir. Is capitalization important? It's sort of something which I would recommend everybody to do. For every keyword that you might be using, go with capital words, okay, so that you follow the exact order of what the marking scheme suggests. Okay, and that is everything we need to know. But one another point is that sometimes there is a possibility that the question also states that you are not required to declare and initialize. So if a question says that you are not required to declare or initialize, then in that case you are not required to initialize a value. But if the question just mentions that you are not required to declare and does not talk about the initializing part, then you are required to declare it. Okay, I hope this is fully clear and that you guys are good to go with the basic understanding of what to do and what not to do. Now we're gonna start off with the 15 marker without wasting any further time. Let me just open up some paper to see what was the last paper I did in the past paper session, so that I do a different paper than the one which we were doing. So moreover, please understand that if anybody up here right now in the class does not know how to work with how to work with, what do we call it, your Jinabe Ala, 2D arrays. If anybody up here does not know how to deal with 2D arrays, please, I would recommend that you stop watching this class right now and then you go and open up my playlist, and you first and foremost thing you should do is go watch the 2D arrays, functions, procedures, those parts. If you're not clear with that, I'm sorry, but this class will not teach you how to make use of arrays, right? We will expect that you know everything regarding arrays and 2D's array. We are just going to see how do you implement it in a 15 marker, inshallah. But the point here to note is that please do know that you have to understand it well on your own before coming and taking this class. Okay, so let's open up a paper. This is, sir, when do we initialize 1 and 0? It depends upon you. So if you initialize it with 1, you need to keep the same order. If you initialize it with 0, again you need to keep the same order. But I would recommend, I always do it with 1. So bas 1 ke saath hi karo, forget this 0 wali logic. So we're going to do the 15 marker for the October-November 2024 paper number 23. I'm sort of just going to go and dive onto the 15 marker, inshallah, which is up here. Okay, so we're going to solve this question in great detail and understand what the examiner requires from us. Sir, how many marks are logic? Logic ke aapke honge 9 marks. 9 marks. Okay, 9 marks. So now let's jump into solving this 15 marker to see what's happening and kis tarike se karna hai, kis tarike se nahi karna, and everything like that. Okay, so let's start off with this paper. I hope it's not that difficult, inshallah, and it's good enough for you to understand the basic fundamentals, inshallah. So the question says that, let's start off. How are you going to start it off? So you're going to say, first and foremost, take a pencil with yourself, underline everything important. So we're going to start off. It says that members of a litter picking group complete a litter pick every month. The members' names are stored in a 1D array with the name of picker name. So whenever you're solving a 15 marker, always have a rough page with yourself. Okay, you can do it on some blank page or wherever, but if it's like some blank page, clearly mention on it rough work, so that the examiner knows, because the examiner does check your blank pages too. Now, the question's first statement tells us that there is going to be a 1D array with the name of picker name. And this is basically going to store the names of all the people who participated in that activity of picking up litter, right? So this is the October-November paper number 23 for 2024. Okay, so let's create a one-dimensional array up here. So we have a 1D array. I will not be making it very big, but yeah, just for the idea. Okay, so this is a 1D array which has the name of what? It has the name of picker name. And this 1D array is basically going to be storing picker name. And that is basically going to be storing the names of the people who participated in that event. Now this rough work could be done in pen and could be done with pencil. It does not matter. However, your final code needs to be in pen only. And please remember that don't write your 15 marker code first with pencil just so you think that I can save myself. That's going to be the biggest mistake you can make in your exam. Please, for God's sake, don't make this mistake. Otherwise you'll be cooked. You don't have time to do all that stuff. Okay, you can only do rough work with pencil, but please, nothing else. Okay, so now we have a 1D array with the name of sir, can we ask for an extra sheet? Of course you can ask for an extra sheet. No one can stop you from getting an extra sheet. Now you have a 1D array which stores the name. So like this might have names like, okay, Ali, it might have name like Maryam, it might have name like Hamza, and then we might have Jack, we might have something like Mustafa. So we sort of have different names. So all these 5 names are people who participated in the activity. So I'm just going to make small array so that I get to know that what's happening. Moving on, it says that each member stores the weight of the letter they have picked in another 1D array with the name of picked weight. Okay. So there is one other 1D array with the name of picked weight, where basically we are storing the amount of letter I picked up. Okay, so the amount of letter I picked up with the name of what? It's having picked weight. So picked weight, and this is storing what? How much amount of weight of a letter did I pick up? Was it 2 kgs, 3 kgs, 5 kgs, 10 kgs, and so on. So it's sort of recording what's happening. Okay. सर ये सब पूरा उठाने वाले वेयर, सर ये सब पूरा उठाने वाले वेयर, क्या मतलब वेयर आपके पेपर में? ये जहाँ भी होंगे प्लीज यार. अभी आई जस्ट वोक अप सो आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड अगर कोई मजाक शजाक हो रहा है. सही है. So now what's happening is they say that the weights are in kilograms with 1 decimal place. So we know that whenever we are going to store value in this array, it's going to be of 1 decimal point. 1 decimal point. So ये मैंने point लिख दिया. I'm just going to write this point so that it's there in my mind, that when I'm sort of solving it up, it's easier for me to understand as to how I need to basically solve it. Is it lagging for everybody? Let me check it out. Just a second. Let me check it out. Okay, I can change. All right, I guess it's fine now again. So let's start off then. So here you have it. Let me reduce the bitrate a bit so that way it will not be that laggy. I hate the internet here at Lams, man. What the hell? It has to be perfectly fine generally, but sometimes, I don't know, it gets cooked. The moment I'm not taking a class, it goes up to like 70 MB upload speed. But yeah, it's class timings and then it gets cooked. So I don't know what to say about this. But never mind. I guess it's perfectly fine. Will the recording be available? Let's see, maybe. Of course it will. So yeah, it's perfectly fine. Let's get back to work. So now we have a picked weight array, which is going to store the weights of all the letter I picked up to 1 decimal point. Like for example, I can say Ali picked up 5.3 kg. Maryam picked up 2.7 kg. Hamza picked up 6.3 kg, and so on, right? So on. But now the point here to understand is, how do I know which person picked how much weight, right? So if I read the question, it says that the position of each member's data in the 2 arrays is the same. For example, the member stored at index 10 in picker name and at index 10 in picked weight is the same. This is what makes the 15 marker very easy. This tells us that if we are talking about, let's say, index number 1, which is my position number 1, let's say for both of the 2 arrays, it's talking about the same person, which means that the name of the person who is at picker's name position number 1, like Ali, the same data for that same person is going to be in the picked weight array at position number 1. Which means that the weight which Ali carried, the weight of the letter which Ali carried, that will be also in position number 1 in the picked weight. So like 7.2. Why? Just because in the picker name array, he was at position number 1. So whatever position he was at in the picker name array, the same data of him will be stored in the picked weight array in the same position number 1. So this makes it very easy for us to find out, because if I say that, okay, there is a boy with the name of, let's say, Rana. We have Rana in the class. Okay, so if I say Rana, I want to find out the name of Rana. I know Rana is at position number 5, let's say. Okay, at position number 5. So if Rana is at position number 5 and I ask one of you to find the name of Rana, how will I do it? It's pretty easy. I'm just going to write the name of the array, which is what? It's picker name. And then what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to go to position number 5. This is the October November 25. October November 24. Let me write it. Paper number 23. So October November 24, paper 23. Okay. So now there is a picker name array, and in that, when you go to position number 5, you basically get the name of Rana. And if I go to picked weight array, oh, why is the graphic tablet lacking though? But yeah, picked weight array, and you go to the same position number 5, same to same position number 5. Guess what? You're gonna find the weight which Rana lifted. So like the weight of the litter, which was something like 2.5 kgs. So the best part is that whatever the array is, if I get to know the position number for a single person, I can find out his name, and at the same time you can find out his weight. Okay, you can do this in exam by writing it a bit short. I'm sort of explaining it up so that you all understand it really well. Okay, but yeah. Sir, please Urdu. Oh, sorry, we will not be able to do Urdu. We have international students with us, students from Malaysia, Bangladesh. So you also have to sort of think about them too, right? So, sir, what if the second array is 2D1? We're going to come to 2D array questions, inshallah, soon. So don't worry, okay? We're going to do those later on. Moving on. So now we understand, what do we call it? What are we going to do is that, let's say we now have the details. We understood what's happening. Today's 15 marker is deliberately a bit easy so that you understand how to solve it. And inshallah, we're going to solve the game one. Don't worry, sab kar lenge. Sahi, we're going to do everything. But this planning is important. If you don't do this planning, you might get confused. And that's the reason. That's the whole reason why people are like, sir, we wrote 3 to 4 lines of code and then I forgot what to do. You forget because you don't plan. That's mandatory. You need to take out, at least my recommended timing is that you take out 1 hour for the 15 marker. And out of that 1 hour, you sort of spend the first 10 to 15 minutes on planning. And once your plan has been drafted, you're going to see like the entire class, you're just making the plan. And when I get to writing the code, it's literally going to take me like 15 minutes and I'll be done. Now, what does the question say? It says that every month there is a small prize awarded to the members of the group who have the 2 heaviest weights. So whoever has the 2 heaviest weights, we need to find that. And certificates are awarded to all members with a pick weight of over 3 kilograms. So now I know one thing. If somebody had greater than 3 kg weight, we're going to give them what? We're going to give them certificates. And then there are going to be cash prize money for the person who had the highest and the second highest. So for the highest and the second highest, there is going to be separate sort of prizes. So it sort of tells us that we need to sort of implement this thing. Okay, moving on. The question says, write a program that meets the following requirement. It allows the weight of the members' picks to be inputted and validated. So a lot of students usually get confused, sir, humne kab input karna hai, when are we supposed to input and when not? So if the question does not mention that you need to input, this in most cases mean that your array already has the value inside. But if let's say you do not have that thing and the question says that you need to input it, this means that I now first and foremost need to start off with inputting the weight. So I'm going to be asking the weight of the members to be inputted and their names. So I'm going to ask the person, okay buddy, tell me your name, and then I'm going to be like, okay bro, tell me your weight, okay, of whatever you lifted. Then you need to sort the arrays picked weight and picked name in descending order of weight. So I get to know that, okay, this is going to implement a 2D bubble sort, a 1D bubble sort. So it's basically implementing a bubble sort algorithm. So I'm going to again using a pencil write that I have to then do bubble sort. That was when I was talking about the flow thing. Remember in the 6 marks, that's the flow. You're going to first do this, then you're going to come to this, then this, then this, and then this. So if someone does this first and then this and then this and then this, so you're sort of just losing marks on the flow, right? So that is something you need to understand. Now, the thing is, then once you do this, you need to output the member's name and the pick weights of the 2 members which have the highest or the heaviest pick. And then you're going to identify them as best in the group and second best in the group. And then we're going to store the names of all the members who will receive a certificate in the array picker certificate. So now there is going to be basically a third array. Okay, so there is a third array just like before. Let me, rather than creating it again, copy the same one. So we sort of have another similar array, but this now stores the people's name who got a certificate. And when are you going to get a certificate? You're going to get a certificate only and only if you have lifted what? Greater than 3 kg of weight. So there is an empty array, something which has nothing inside it. Okay, it's empty. And this is now going to store the name of the people who got a certificate. So the name of the array is going to be picker certificate. So you write picker certificate. Now, whoever gets weight greater than 3 kg, like for example, Ali. So I'm going to copy Ali name because his 7.2 up here was greater than 3 kg, which would be checked by, like, I'm going to see that, okay, bro, if the picked weight array, whatever the number is, like index, if that index, whatever value in that loop is, if it's greater than 3 kg, then I want you to basically go to the picker certificate array and go to the same position. Okay, or like whatever position is, like position number 1. So we are talking about position number 1. So you go to the position which is available, free position, and in that free position you put the name of the person. So now if I want to store the name of Ali, how will I do that? I'm going to write the name from picker name, right? So I would be like, okay, go to the picker name array, because that stores the names. But I know that picker name has the same index position as that of picked weight. So if picked weight is at index number, let's say whatever, then I can say picker name would also be at the same index. So whatever index is up here, you go to the same index up here, and whatever the name is, you put it up here. So doing this will make Ali name come up here. That's the whole logic of how you need to basically implement it. Now, if I go and further read the question, it says that then you need to output a message stating that the number of certificates which needs to be printed are this one, which means that I also need to store how many certificates I got. So I'm going to also have a variable that tells me number of certificates. So I might make something like this up here, number of certificates. Now this is where you come up with the concept of meaningful identifiers. Someone might just do it as X. Someone might just do it as num. What you should do is you should give it a name which explains the purpose too. So you might do something like num certificates. So this explains that, okay, you are going to be storing certificates, but you're sort of storing the number of certificates, which ensures that the whole model is simplified for us. And then you say you may use pseudocode or program code and add comments to explain your code. You do not need to declare any array or variable. You may assume this has already been done. All inputs and outputs must contain suitable messages, and you do not need to initialize the data, but only and only in picker name. What this means is that you do not need to take the input for name. Why? Because they said that the picker name, you do not need to initialize it, which means that you sort of already have the value within it. So you need to write a program where you sort of have the names already filled in an array. You're going to ask the user to give us the weight for XYZ person, and once you have filled all the array for picked weight, you're going to then make use of some concept to see how many of them qualify for the certificates and how many of them are scoring the highest and the second highest, the person's name. And then you need to basically output all that stuff. But you're neither required to declare any of the arrays or the variables. Like for example, I said that we might be making use of the num certificate variable, right? Number of certificate variable. Now you are not required to basically declare that at all. But nowhere up here you can see that you don't have to initialize it, which means that the num certificate variable which we are going to create, we need to initialize it. So you are just required to initialize it. You are not required to declare it. And likewise, they clearly mentioned you do not need to initialize the data in the array picker name, which means that this statement means that picker name already has data inside it. So now we are basically going to start off with the code where we are going to first and foremost ask the people for the weight. Based upon the weight, we are then going to go ahead. Sir, we won't declare even if we add something by ourselves. Does the question not mention clearly that you do not need to declare any variable or arrays? So if the question says that you are not required to declare any array or variables, this means that even any variable which you are making from your own self, you are not even required to declare that at all. Now I know that these Pakistani school teachers have been teaching you again and again that or kuch nahi aata, you don't know anything, just declare a few things, but they won't get marks. Okay, you're just wasting your time. Why? You don't have that much time. So you need to understand, that when an examiner clearly mentions something for you, when a clearly something has been mentioned, you are not required to do it. Okay, so that's the reason why in this case you are only required to basically talk about the inputting of data and not declaring anything. Now let's start off with the code. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So the thing is, there is one problem up here. The problem is that we do not know how many people are there in the group. So like every time we need to make use of a loop, we need to understand how many people we need to have. Okay, we need to understand how many people so that we can make use of loops according to that point. Okay, now the point here to understand is that because we do not know, sir, 4 marks for comments, or my teacher said, the examiner did not specify anywhere in any of the marking schemes that there are going to be 4 marks for the comments. Okay, so there is nothing like that. आपने नमाज नहीं पढ़ी guys. नमाज आप लोग को पढ़ के आनी चाहिए. I started the class at 5:45. Maghrib के time होने दो. We have like I guess 20 minutes, right? So then after that we are gonna move on. Now because we do not know how many people are there in this group, whenever the question does not specify that how many people are there, like for example, I don't know the maximum amount of people that can come in picker name, I don't know the size of the arrays of picker name, picked weight, picker certificate, whenever something like that happens where you are unable to understand what's the size of, always consider the size to be something big. So you might say that the size is something like 500, you might say the size is something like 300, you might say the size is 200, but this is only when the question does not specify, and it's very rare. It's very rare, like it's super rare that a question does not specify it. But yes, we have questions like the one which we are right now, where we do not know how many people can there be in this club, how many picker names could be, how many picked weights could be, how many picker certificates could be. Okay, so you should keep this in your mind, that when a question tells you and you are shocked that, okay, sir, I read the question, but I could not figure out how many people or how many number of people we have in an array. So you do not need to get worried. You're just going to take a size which is greater than 100, and then you can write a comment next to it, say that I assume that that's the maximum number of people. For example, if I have to start off, I can do something like, okay, there is a variable I create, okay, which tells me the group size, okay, the total number of people. So group, or like size kar sakte, but let's do it group size, okay, and I assign it the value something like 200 or like 250, for example. Now I'm going to add a comment next to it because I do not know, right? I do not know what's happening. But yes, you're going to add 200, and then you can say, assuming this is the max amount of, maximum or max amount of, again add another comment over here, okay, again assuming this is the max amount of students of, writing this will now tell the examiner that, okay, the person understood that we sort of have a scenario. We are basically you're going to be having at least 250 people. Okay, so now we are going to go for all those values. We are going to go from the very first person all the way to the 250 people we have. So to the 250 volunteers we have, and then based upon that I'm going to check the whole thing. So now I have assumed that, okay, in all these two arrays, picker names and picked weight, we sort of created something that we sort of took this assumption that we're going to have up to 250 people. So we sort of just assume it again. I'm just assuming it because the question did not mention. Again, I'm just assuming it because the question did not specify. In most of the cases, in 90% of the questions, the examiner will specify. We're going to see those examples too. But where it's not mentioned, you can assume how many people there are. So now this variable which we created, group size, it tells us how many total people were there who participated in this event of collecting litter. So like the total number of students who basically went to count and gather all this litter. That's the whole purpose of creating this array variable with the name of group size. Okay. Does it matter how much we assume? You should assume it's something greater than 100, because if it's less than 100, that's pretty much less. So you should assume it's something big so that all the values could be accommodated. Okay. And now what we need to do is, you sort of have to start off with writing the code. So how will you write the code? Now the thing is, you need to sort of store the name of two people. You're going to store the name of the person who got the highest and the lowest. So what we can do is, why not I create an array. Okay, why not I create an array, and I create an array something like this, which is sort of going to be storing values, and it's most probably going to be what it's going to be so it's going to be okay, yeah. So what if I tell you that I need to store the position of the people who basically got the highest. So we need to store the position of how many people? I'm going to be storing the position of two people. One is going to be the one person who got the highest, and then the second one is going to be the person who got the second highest. So what if I create an array of 1D, one dimension, which basically stores the first person's position and then the second person's position. So maybe I create something like this, and I can write the name of person number 1 who got the highest up here, and then I can write the name of person number 2 up here. You can either do this, or you can even do it using two separate variables, so like highest and second highest. So this is just an approach that if you open up the marking scheme is going to go with this. I'm going to make you guys go through the second method. Okay, so we're going to go to the easy method, so that if anybody does not follow the marking scheme, this does not mean that you are going to lose marks. Okay, so now what we need to do is, we're going to have two variables. The first variable definitely is going to be storing the best in the group position, and then the second one is going to be storing the second best. So I can create a variable, I can say best, and I can, let's say, assign it the value for now of it being best in the entire group. Best in the entire group. Okay. And then we are gonna later on put the name up here, but yeah. But then we can sort of do something like second best, so S best. And in the second best, I'm gonna put the value second best in the entire group. Second, when will the live stream end? So around 7:30. Second best in the group. We're gonna have a small break at 7, inshallah. Okay. So once we have sort of done this, so now we have set the variables. Always my recommendation is that if there are some variables which you need to assign, create, first do that part. Okay, so first try to sort of create variables, initialize them, set them up, and then after that start off with taking the values, input, and all that stuff. Now once we have started doing this, we are now going to go through the entire array, which has to, starting from the very first person all the way to the number of students in group size. So if someone changes this later on to 300, so I don't want to go from 1 to 250, I want to go till 250 to this value, whatever is within group size. So now what I'm going to do is, I need to initialize there. Okay, I need to initialize, intake the input. So I'm going to make I'm going to add a comment. How do you add a comment? You put 2 forward slashes and then you write initializing and taking input for array, and taking input for array. So before every major step you do, try to add a comment like this. So just one line, and that's more than enough. Say, so now what we are going to do is, we're going to go through the entire array starting from the first position. So for that, I'm going to use a for loop, and the for loop is going to have an index starting from the first position, and it's going to go till the total number of people in the group size. So starting from 1 all the way to the total number of people in group size. And what I'm going to do is, I would be first and foremost asking the person, I'm going to say that, okay, please enter the weight for Ali, because I know that this names array has been filled. So I know that the names array has been filled, the weight array has not been filled. Okay, the weight array has not been filled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to output something like, I'll be like, okay buddy, please tell me the weight for the person having name of Ali. And then you're going to input the name of weight of Ali's, and then that weight which Ali picked, that needs to be stored up here. So how do you do that? It's pretty much very straightforward. I would be like, let's make use of an output statement, and that output statement will say, please enter the weight for the person, and then you may add like a colon just to make it a bit more fancy, and then you turn these quotation marks off, comma, and then how do I print the name? So to print the name, I'm going to write picker name and with the index value. So picker, but now I don't have space. What do I do now? I don't have space. So if you don't have space, it's better to write it this way and then continue it below up here, write index up here. And boom. Don't be that person who writes index up here. If you wrote it up here and that comes outside this logic, you're gonna lose marks for this. Please, 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 please do keep this in your mind. Sir, our 3D arrays include khuda ka khauf kar, what are 3D arrays? Okay. Oh yes, I forgot. Yes, thank you so much. Another point which I forgot was in that initial discussion part which we were doing, the 6 marks which we were sort of discussing, the 6 marks out of the 9. So I guess I did it up there. Okay, I did not. So we had 6 and 9, right? So in the 6 marks, you're also going to get marks for indentation. So you need to also indent your code. Indentation basically means that you sort of have to do it with this flow going on perfectly. Man, it's such gorgeous weather outside. So beautiful weather, and I'm taking the class up here. Man. Sir, I saw in markets that they always do output statement अलग से and input अलग से rather than in one output. तो ये मैंने input तो नहीं लिया. This isn't input. This is just saying that please enter the weight for the person, and then you go to the array with the name or whatever index is. So like you go to the array, go to position number 1 because index is going to have the position number 1, and so it's going to output please enter the weight for the person. So person number 1 was Ali. So it's going to output please enter the weight for the person Ali. And now I'm going to basically take an input in the next line. So now I'm going to be taking an input. How do I take an input? Easy. I would be like input, and this input would be then stored. So I'm going to be doing something like input weight, and this weight will be stored in the array with the name of picked weight. Okay. So again in the picked weight array, so I'm going to go to the picked weight array, and I'm going to go to whatever current index I'm talking about, whatever the current position is. If it's for position number 1, now if I want to add the weight of position number 1, I'm also going to be putting it at the same point, right? So picked weight position number index, whatever the value of index is, go up there, and inside that I want you to put the weight. So you're going to put the weight inside it. Another thing is that these 2 steps could also be written in one line, So if you have to write it in one line, it could have also been done this way. So if anybody does this directly, input picked weight and within the index value directly, if someone does this, that's also perfectly fine. Okay. So these 2 things are same. So sometimes you might see this in the marking scheme, sometimes you might see this. So there is no difference at all. Okay. It's the same thing. Sir, please show outside by your camera. I'm in Karachi. It's scorching hot. Oh man. अगर दिखा दिया ना फिर आप लोग से पढ़ाई नहीं होगी. Sir, row and column vague words, yes, in this context I would recommend don't use row and column. Try to use words like, or if you have to use column, rather than doing it column wise, you can do index for row, and for column, well, you can, but it's better that if the meaning of that column and row comes to your mind, you should go with that. Okay. So I'm currently in Lahore. LUMS. I am a student at LUMS. So yeah. Sir, how to do indentation? Good question, but abhi main kaise explain karu? But indentation basically is something you need to do, that whatever step you're doing, if something happens beneath it or under it, like these statements are going to run under the for statement, so you leave a bit of gap within it. So it sort of explains what's happening under what. So like all these statements are running under the for. So sort of this. Okay. Now, once we have inputted it for the first person, let's say I've inputted it, I need to keep on doing something which I missed. So the question stated that you need to also validate it. When it says that I need to validate it, what do they mean by this? By validation, I need to mean one thing, because if I read the question clearly, किधर गया? एक second. So, let me read it again. For example, 8.4, the position, and for example, the memory store, every month is a small price. Okay, okay. So now what I need to do is I need to validate it. What do I mean by validation? They did not specify any specific criteria for validating. Okay, so like they did not tell us that the weight needs to be between 0 and 10 or 0 or 20 or whatsoever. But you tell me one thing. If someone inputs something like -5 up here, wouldn't that be wrong? Wouldn't that be wrong? That will be wrong, right? Because negative weight does not exist. This means that I need to set a condition up here which checks that you need to keep on repeating this set of code, keep on repeating and keep on taking input until user inputs a weight which is greater than 0. Because if an input is of like negative value, you should tell them that, okay, bro, your weight is outside the correct range. And how do you implement a check? Especially something like this for a validation check. Remember, it's always same. It's always same. Just memorize this sort of. It's always going to repeat whenever you want to make use of your validation check. The validation check needs to be done in a way that you're going to make use of a repeat loop. And then within the repeat loop, you're going to do all these stuff. So you're going to output, you're going to take an input, and then you won't be putting it up directly. You can ignore this part. You're going to first check it. You're going to first check it. So I'm going to take an input and then I'm going to check it whether this is correct or not. How do I check it? How do I check it? So for it to be checked, I'm going to remove this part first. Okay, I'm going to remove this part. I'm first going to see that you need to keep on repeating until the weight is greater than 0. So I can add something like an if statement up here. I can write an if statement that if this weight is basically less than 0, if it's less than 0, this means that it's wrong. Okay, it's wrong. So in that cases, you should then output that, bro, you have entered incorrect value. So then I might do then output incorrect weight entered. Please enter positive value. Please enter positive value. Positive values. And doing this, after this, it's an end if statement. So I'm just going to do end if up here. Again, follow the same order. And this needs to be repeated till when? Until. This needs to keep on repeating until I say that the weight which has been inputted by the user, it's greater than 0. If it's not greater than 0, I want you to keep on repeating this. So I'm going to say until weight which the user inputted, it's greater than 0. Now once this thing has happened, this would basically means we're going to check the 1 decimal point thingy later on. Okay, but yeah, once this thing happens, it's basically going to allow me one thing. You know what? It's going to allow me one really good thing. And that is that, what do we call it? I basically, when I do this, it's going to ensure that whatever weight has been inputted, the value is greater than 0. Okay, so this weight up here is currently, if it's negative, it's going to throw an error and it's going to re-ask you to input the weight, because you're going to, this condition of until will not be met. So you're going to go back at the top and you're going to repeat doing everything else. Now, when this means that when I exit this repeat statement or the loop, this means that I have the correct weight value, which is greater than 0. Now I'm going to put this weight value in the array, which was what? Picked weights. So picked weight. And then I go to the same index which I was talking about, and inside this I basically put the weight value. I put the weight inside this. Sir, can we compare through array rather than using a variable weight? You can do that, but I personally would prefer this. This is easier. But yes, if you want to assign it to an array and then you want to make use of an array statement that way, you say that repeat until the value in the array is greater than 0, then that's also perfectly fine. Okay. But yeah, we just implemented validation. Now, once we are done with this, I'm just going to add a comment. So we're going to add a comment. I might add a comment validation. So a lot of people make this one mistake up here. They make use of nested ifs. Nested ifs work in a way that if weight is less than 0, do this. If and else, if it's not, then you make use of this. Now you tell me one thing, who asked this question, Muhaimin Miakhil, you tell me one thing, that if somebody enters the value -5, your nested if will take him to an entrance again. The next time he enters -7, okay, you might do it again. But let's say you do it again and it takes you to -10. So now is your if statement going to unlimitedly work? No, right? It's not going to work infinitely times. It's going to work for a set number of times, for a set number of words. So for that reason, it's mandatory that you make use of repeat statement. Okay, you make use of repeat statements. So this code which I just wrote, that's basically a validation check, and validation check, that too of range check. So if you did not understand what's happening in this repeat one and this until part, go to my chapter number 7 playlist. First watch the validation thingy. You're gonna understand that, and then you're gonna understand this code perfectly fine. Okay. Sir, can we use while loop? Yes, you can use while loop. That could be used. Yeah, I know my pseudocode marker is not working. I do not have time to fix it up. There is a small issue with it. Sir, I make so many mistakes while writing 15. I need to edit. No, Fatma, don't worry. Ensure that the first 60 mark part is done perfectly fine. Okay. Try to get as much marks as possible. Then try to make a good rough plan. Okay. Try to make a good rough plan. Then start off with the code and jo zahin mein aaye, Bismillah ke saath, write it in one go. If there is some mistake, no problem. Just write it up. Keep on writing the code. Just complete the code and you're going to get marks for it. Sir, why doesn't the double slash come at the end of the comment? ये कैसा सवाल है? Plus, it's just telling the program that when this comes up, this means that whatever is after this till the end of the line, it's a comment. So that's the logic. So is it recommended to like write the whole 15 in extra paper then in the last line comment? No, not at all, not at all. Please don't make this mistake. You will not have these last 5 minutes, and I'm telling you, you're not gonna get the marks at all, and then you would be cooked. Please don't make this mistake at all. Say it, please, please, please. Sir, rounding hogi. Rounding is sort of assume that the value is going to be rounded, okay? Or we can also say that if it's rounded, if their value is not rounded, the person is going to input some rounded value. So it's sort of assume. At this point, I cannot check the rounding part, right? And that's not something valid. The validation up here is that it's not negative. So in both starting and ending, no. So you only put the slash at the start, not at the end. Alright, so it's 7 p.m. Let's have a quick 10 minutes break, and then we're going to continue from here. It's my max going to take like 20-30 minutes more, inshallah. Can you recommend important years 2023 onwards, Sare? Sir, please do other pseudocode question marathons in other. I don't have that much time, unfortunately. I have my own finals going on, so I might only be able to take out an hour for you guys max. But yeah, sorry for that. What I'm going to do is, as stated earlier, I'm going to upload 2 papers for you all, so that if anybody of you have problems with trace tables and logic gates, the truth tables for logic gates and all that stuff, those are also clarified. Okay. So, sir, can we first write the whole program and then add comments? Yes, you can definitely do that, Amar. How much time? At least I'm saying I would recommend reserving 1 hour for it. Okay. Now, before ending and starting the small break, everybody in the chat box, I want you guys to let me know, do you understand what's happening? Like, do you understand the logic that is being built up here? How long would you say I should spend breaking the problem? So like around 15 minutes. Yes, 115 marker daily. Walaikum assalam, walaikum assalam. Sir, trace table video is available. Yep. Yeah. Questions, understanding video. Also watch the marathon sessions which I've conducted for pseudocode. Okay. So those explain it pretty well, and you would be very much clear on what's happening. Okay. So that's great to know. That's so great to know you guys are understanding it. So I'm just sending the community group link. I'm gonna even pin it. You guys can join it from here. And any question which you might have, you can ask it up here. You're going to have a lot of other students too, and you'll be very much good to go. Okay, so now it's 7:01. Let's take a small break till like 7:10, 7:11, and then after that we can join in back and complete the 15 mark. Okay, so break till 7:15 convention. 7:12. Sir, which validation check is it? It's the range check. So break till 7:15. That is it. See you guys inshallah in 15 minutes.
All right, everybody, just give me 2 minutes. Let me just grab some water to drink, and then we can sort of start off with it again. So yeah, so just give me 2 minutes. All right, I'm back. Ooh, so 20 minutes break, but yeah, let's start off. So let me just start off the screen sharing, and also open up the chat box for you all to let me know if I'm audible or not. Just give me a minute. Until then, I can also send a message. If we are restarting, kindly join in. So yeah, let me send the message in the group. Also, you guys kindly let me know. Can you hear me? Kiddos, do let me know if you can hear me. So, CIES groups. Alright, great. That's great. So let me just send a message that we are starting off. We join @ all. Join in. Join in. All right, so let's continue with the 15 marker which we were just solving. I'm going to ensure कि बस सब complete हो जाए, and then we will kind of join in. CS, CS, and CS. So we have martial art 3 groups, but yeah, let's get to the work again. So we were sort of understanding how this 15 marker needs to be evaluated. We did everything that's important to understand, right? But right now we are only done with the first part, which was to validate it. Sir, I can't go back. I missed it. Why can't I go back? You cannot go back because we are currently in a live stream. The maximum you can go back in a live stream is of 15 minutes. Okay. So the thing is that for that reason, once the stream is over, once the stream has ended, it's going to process, it's going to take 1 hour to be processed, and then after that you would be able to watch it from the start. Okay, sir, won't we take round weight one? Yeah, round weight one. The thing is, we sort of are assuming that it's going to be that way. However, yeah, you are correct. If you want to do it that way, that's also perfectly fine. Okay, so if anybody wants to do it with the rounded part, perhaps that might be better.
So yeah, that might be better, because the question clearly mentions that you also need it in one rounded place decimal point. So it's better that we also sort of round it up. So if I have to round a specific number, how do I round it up? So in our syllabus, we have a function known as round, which takes one parameter to be as the value which you want to round, and then it takes the second parameter to be a value to which you want it to be rounded off. So you want to round the weight value to one decimal point. So whatever the input of weight at this point is, you round it up and you take that to be as an input. Okay, or perhaps rather than doing it up here, a better approach would be that you first check it whether it's within the range or not, and once you have checked it up and you understand that yeah, it's perfectly fine, before assigning it in the array, you can round it up here. So you might round this value, whatever it is, like 10.7892, you round that weight to only one decimal point so that it becomes as 10.7. So that's how you need to do it. Sir, how to validate two things, right? Area, check my chapter 7 playlist on this. I feel like you were understanding with this is a bit weak, but no problem, we can have it fixed. Perhaps we're going to do a question on this too, inshallah, so it's going to get clarified. But yeah, now what we are done is, once I'm done with this, I'm going to put a tick up here. Okay, congratulations. Okay, sir, I wrote DDUS instead of full marks. It's full marks. You will get marks. Don't worry, you're going to get full marks. Don't worry. DDoS, or if you write a denied distributed service attack or that whole thing, you're still going to get full marks. Okay, don't worry. The DDoS is perfectly fine. Second one says that you now need to sort the array picked weights and pick a name in descending order. So now comes up the bubble sort concept. So you should memorize, firstly understand the bubble sort concept, watch my video on it, understand what's happening inside it, and then write the code for it. So the way a bubble sort algorithm works is that we sort of go all the way from the very start and we step by step compare each value. Okay, we step by step compare each value, and let's say if the values are sort of greater than or less than each other, we sort of always sort of make a swap between them. And once we make the swap, we sort of do what? We keep on doing this until the value of swap, it stays false or we reach to the last element. That's how you do it. So like the exact same algorithm needs to be repeated up here. How does that work? So we have, like, let me write bubble sort up here as a comment, bubble sort to be implemented, and then if you remember the algorithm, by the way, I'm going to upload my paper number 2 notes today. This is going to be for the entire paper 2, so chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, everything, inshallah, and you can view all those algorithms, everything in great detail there too. So the way it works is that we first and foremost have a variable with the name of last, and this last variable always has the maximum value. So like if I have 100 kids, so the last is going to have the value of 100. Okay, it's going to have the value of 100. In this case, the last variable is going to store the number of total people we have. So how many total people we have? We have total people worth of the values in the group size. So the group size. So I'm going to say that in the last variable, I'm going to put the value group size. And now I'm going to be creating a variable that is going to store the value of whether the swap has been done successfully or not. But before doing that, we always first get into a loop. So a bubble sort works in a way that you go into a repeat loop. If anybody of you does not understand this concept, I would recommend that you watch the bubble sort video and you're going to fully understand what's happening up here. But we start repeating, and then we have a variable with the name of what? We have a variable with the name of swap. We set this swap to be originally as false. We set it to be as false. Then I'm going to check the subsequent value. So like I might be like, okay, the first person's weight is like 7.3, the second person's weight is 12.5. So because it's descending order, I'm going to check that if the first one is less than the second one, then what I want you to do is that you take this 12.5, you bring that up here, and you take this 7.3 and you bring that there. How do you do that? It's pretty much easy. In position number one, you put the value of position number 2, but now your position number value is lost, because if you do position number 2 and you put position value of 1 up there, so right now when you do this, position 1 also has the value 12.5. So again put 12.5 at the place of 12.5. So whenever you have a bubble sort algorithm, we always create a temporary variable. We create a temporary variable. The temporary variable is going to first store the value of position number 1. Then we're going to say that go into position number 1. There you put the value of position number 2. Then you go to position number 2 and you put the value of the temp variable, the temporary variable. ओके गाइज, एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस वो बाद में हो जाएंगे. सर पिछला पार्ट सारा स्ट्रीम का नहीं शो हो रहा. गाइज वो स्ट्रीम जब एंड होगी तब शो होगा. सर लास्ट इक्वल्स टू 10,000, नहीं, लास्ट इक्वल्स टू द टोटल नंबर ऑफ पीपल. सो हमारे how many students we have the total number of students are stored in what group size. So I'm like, okay, go till group size. So you have the swap variable, you set it as false, and now I'm going to compare them. How? I would be like, okay, if, because the question says that I need to order them in terms of weight, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it for the value in a way that I'm going to check that if the weight, what's the name of the array? It's picked weight. If picked weight, if the picked weight for the specific index, for a specific index, if it is less than, if this is less than picked weight index plus 1, picked weight index plus 1, index plus 1, then you need to basically make this change. But for anybody who might be aware of how the bubble sort algorithm works, you would be very much clear that for this to happen, we first need to ensure that this array has ended, right? So I did not end it. Oh yes, this is a mistake. Wait. So this part, the bubble sort, this has to be done separately. We need to first fill up the array, right? So I just saw this because there's one other thing to be taught here too. So now what we're going to do is, we sort of have this this way. Let me just put it up here for now. Okay, and then I'm going to first complete the upper one. It was what? It was for index. So I would be like, okay, next index. And now every time you make use of a bubble sort, you're going to understand that in bubble sort we run another loop, but that loop runs till the total minus 1. We always run another loop, but that loop runs from the first value to 1 less than that. Okay, so sir, last group size will always come. Yes, it's always gonna come. Okay, sir, if I wrote outside the line, will I get my sir? If I cut all the lines, so I mark the question in the blank space and write the answer. The baki kafi answer will overflow out of lines. See, if anything is within this boundary, if anything is within this black lines boundary, that will be marked. So if anything is on the blank space, that's going to be marked. Anything outside the lines but above this line of black, it's going to be marked. But if you wrote something up here, I'm sorry, that won't be marked. I'll share it in the group, don't worry. Okay, so now every time we have a bubble sort, you should keep this in your mind that your bubble sort always works from the first index to 1 less than the total, This is because, like, let's say I have 5 elements in an array, 5 elements. So I have 10, I have 20, I have 15, I have 17, and I have 2. Now if I go till 5, so in the last one I'm going to be checking if picked weight position number 5 is less than picked weight index plus 1. So 5 plus 1 is going to be 6. But do you see any 6th element up here? No, right? That's the reason why whenever we make use of a bubble sort, we go till 1 less than the total number. So like if the maximum number is of 5, we max go till 4, so that we check if this 4 is less than 4 plus 1, which is what? Which is 5. So we also accommodate the last one, but we do not exceed the boundary. That's the reason why we generally always have this logic of it being done this way. Okay, so for that to happen, we need to make use of another if statement, because this if statement ended up here, which we were dealing with up here. This for loop ended, so we need to implement another for loop. My bad, not an if statement. So if I have to set a for loop, how do I do that? It's not that complex. What I'm gonna do is, why did it copy this text? Okay, so I understand, and just give me a second. Let me reload the app. There's a bit of a problem with it. Yeah. So what sort of is gonna happen is that I'm gonna first and foremost run an for loop again. So this for loop is going to go from the very first number. So I'm going to go for loop. So don't we use for? Yup, for. So you can now use for followed by the name of a variable. Now someone just asked, don't we use for count? So this does not matter, okay? Whether you write for count, for index, for row, for number. This is just a variable name. Whatever the name of the variable is up here, that needs to come up here. So it's going to be, let's keep it count this time. So for count 1 to how many people? Total people minus 1. So group size minus 1. So whatever the total number of people are, subtract them 1 from. Now I would be like, okay, if in the picked weight, now this time my variable for the loop is count. So I'm going to set this to be count. If for whatever the position I'm at, if it's smaller than the position greater than or next to it, So like in simple words, if position number 1 is smaller than position number 2, this means I need to make a swap. Now I need to make a swap for both the name and for the weight, right? So because they say that you need to basically assign sort the array picked weights, and at the same time you need to do it for the picker name. Sir, for loop should be above repeat. No, 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 no. It should be below. It should be within the repeat loop. Okay, it should be within. So now because I need to do it for both of them, I need to basically first do it for picker's weight, then I'm going to do it for their name. So how do I do that? I'm just going to copy this temporary variable logic up here. So if this is less than that, then in that case, first I'm going to have a temporary variable. Okay, so in that temporary variable, I might put like the name should be something like temp weight, to indicate that it's storing weight values. Okay, again, meaningful identifiers. And in this meaningful identifier, I'm going to store the first position value just the way I explained up here. So the first position value is this picked weight, but at position number count. So you go to the count position, grab that thing, and you put it in temp weight. Then I say that in position number 1, which is what picked weight at count value, picked weight at position count, you go there and you basically store the value of picked weight count plus 1. So you just copy the whole thing just like this. Okay, you just copy this, but rather than it being count this time, you do count plus 1. Do it this way. And then what you do is that you sort of implement this second position and you put the temp value up there. So I'm just going to copy this whole thing again, so that I can save time. And if I copy this and I bring this down below, in this position, now I'm going to be storing the value of what? The value of my temp weight. So now into this, it goes my temp weight. So I've sort of sorted the weight, but it's not only weight which I need to sort. I also need to sort the names. Now, if I have to also sort the names of it, so that's again easy, not that complex. I need to repeat the whole thing, but this time for the names. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something like with the name of temp name. So this temp name. So why do we use group size manager? Guys, ये जब मैं point बता रहा होता हूँ तो उस वक्त सुन लिया करो. Now why don't you guys listen to me at that point? So let me complete it, then I'm going to explain it. So now again, temp name is going to have the picker's name. What's the name of the array? It's with the name of picker name. So now up there, I'm going to first put the picker's name at position number 1 in the temp name. So I would be like, okay, there is an array with the name of picker's name, picker name. And in that, you go to the position of count. Okay, you take the value, store it in temp name. And then you go to picker name count plus 1. So like you go to the second position. And there, you basically grab the data. In the count one, you basically store the value of position number 2. So you do picker name count plus 1, the second position number, because that's greater than it. So you swap it that way. Okay, so you do picker name count plus 1. You put that up here. And then I say that in the second position, which is basically picker name count plus 1, you basically put the value of temp up here. So I'm just going to copy this. And right now in this, I'm going to be assigning the value of what? I'm going to assign the value of temp name. So a lot of people also have this one confusion where they're like, okay, sir, our school teachers taught us that it's not basically going to be this sign, it has to be equals to. Please note that according to the Cambridge syllabus, it's this is known as an assignment operator. Okay, this has been assigned a specific name like assignment operator. So if an examiner clearly mentioned this, you need to do it. So what if I, instead of assuming the group size, I input it? Good question. By the way, in this scenario, they did not ask you to input it. So you're not required to do something which they do not input it. Okay, so it's sort of okay if you make use of that logic, that might also be fine, but in majority of the cases, it's better to take a big assumption. Okay, so why do we do it twice? Because the first time we are doing it for the weight, and the second time we are doing it for the name. So it's sort of like, okay, when I change the weight, like for example, I understood that this person is 7.2 and this is 15. Now, if I have to make the necessary change and I bring 15 up here and I bring the 7.2 up here, this should also mean that Mariam name should go at the top and Ali name should come below. So I first do it for the weight one and then I do it for the name. That's the reason. Okay. So that's why you do it this way. Moving on, now once we have done this, I'm going to be now doing, once we have swapped it one times, what do? We always set the swap variable to as true, right? We set it to be as true. And then this if statement which has been going on, you sort of end it. You sort of like, okay, end if, and if. And then this count, which was for, this now becomes the next count. This comes out to be as next count. And once done with this, I'm going to repeat until, and perhaps I'm going to keep on repeating this until my last either becomes 1 or the swap value stays the false. Again, if you don't understand the logic, you can check out my video on it. But to reduce the last element, I'm going to reduce last by 1. So last being assigned with last minus 1. This means that one value has been sorted. So now next time you do it, the second gets sorted. The next time you do it, the third term gets sorted. And so it sort of goes again and again, again and again, again and again and again and again. Okay. And this goes on until your last is equal to 1, or I say that the value of swap that stays as equal to false, or swap is equal to false. One another point here to note is that this swap being equal to false, you can also write this as not swap. Okay, so if ever in exam you see something like not swap, this indicates that the variable swap has the value false inside. Okay. Sir, chat, I find bubble sort hard. Should I? No. You don't have to memorize it, buddy. Go and watch my video first. It's just because you have never understood it the right way. That's the reason you don't get it. Sir, why did you take the picker name and if statement will not be used? Huh? Why did you take the picker name and if statement will not be? I did not get your point, crypto guide. Okay. So now to discuss this one last time, why did I go till group size -1 and not group size? The logic is that let's say I have 5 elements in an array. So this is position number 1, this is position 2, position 3, position 4, position 5. Now if I go till group size, my group size final value is going to be 5, right? Because I have 5 elements. So this basically means that I'm going to go from the very first position all the way to 5. So my count maximum value could be 5, which means that this could be having a check of if picked weight 5 is less than picked weight 5 plus 1, which is basically what? It's 6. But you tell me, is there a 6th element up here? Do we have any 6th element up here? No, right? We don't. Because we don't have any 6th element up here, because there is nothing up here. If I try to access the 6th element and it does not exist, it's going to give me an error. So what we do is, rather than, because I know that there are 5 elements, I go till 4. So that the 4th element which I check, so like if it's like if picked weight position 4, it's automatically going to check 4 plus 1, 2, which is 5. So the 5th element also gets checked. But if I go till the 5th one, it's trying to go and check the 6th one. Now when it checks the 6th one, it does not exist and it gives us an error. So for that reason, we always go one less than it, so that the max it checks is to 4, because we always see that 4 is going to look for the 5th one up here where we have 4 plus 1. So that's the reason we go till last -1 or the group size -1, because the last index of our total numbers is not something which exists, especially when I do +1 into it. So like if I go till 5, so 5 plus 1 does not exist. काउंट प्लस 1 क्यों? इसका मतलब आपको बबल सॉर्ट का नहीं पता राना, आप बबल सॉर्ट की वीडियो देख लो. ये तो वो वाली बात है कि देखो, इफ यू वांट टू कंपेयर दिस 10 and 20, so 10 basically tells me position number 1, so I'm going to compare it with the next element. So this, if this is like at count, if this is at count, so 20 is where? 20 is basically count plus 1, right? So that's the reason of having count plus 1. Won't it be group size instead of last at the end? Weird. Nah, it has to be last. Why? Because I set this last to be something different. So I'm going to keep on repeating this. But every time I'm going to reduce the last by 1, reduce the last by 1, reduce the last by 1, reduce the last by 1. And eventually it's going to come to a point where the value of last is going to be equal to 1. Okay, so yeah. By the way, there are multiple ways to doing it. So if you also might want to do it this way, that you reduce the group size by 1. So you might do something like group size being reduced by group size by 1, and you keep on doing it until group size is basically equal to 1. That's also fine, I guess. Okay. Can we use flag instead of swap? So this swap is a flag. Okay. By the way, you don't write flag. If you want to write flag, that's perfectly fine. But here comes the point of the meaningful identifier. If you remember, does a flag indicate what's happening? Does the word flag indicate? No, it does not explain what's happening, right? Does the word swap indicate? Yes. So when swap is true, this means that swap happened. If it's false, this means it does not happen. So in the loop statement, can we write last minus one instead of group size minus one? Yes, you can. You can. So if you do it as last minus one, yep. So why is it until swap is false? Again, Mohammed, I feel like your bubble sort concept is weak. I would recommend go watch the video and फिर आपको समझ आ जाएगी. We keep on doing it as false, which means that अगर let's say एक दफा at the top it always becomes false. Now when I check it with the subsequent elements, if it does not get swapped, which means that the array is already sorted, right? If it does not need any requirement of getting swapped here and there, then this means that it should basically mean what? This basically means that there is no need to do any of this. When there is no need to do any of this, the swap value stays false, and if it stays false, this basically means that I'm done because my array is already sorted, so I should just exit it out. What is happening in the blue code? So this is basically values being shifted every position. So one value at position 1 and the value at position number 2, they are getting swapped. So value from one position is taken to the other and the other is taken to the first one. And why is it group 2 groups that shouldn't be? Yeah, that's fine, Musa. If you want to do it that way, just to let you all know, bubble sort could be done in multiple ways. Okay, so if I'm doing it group size minus one, you might do it as literally last minus one. That's also fine. Okay, if you want to do it like with group size minus one, rather than having last up here, you might keep on reducing group size and you can do group size till equal to 1. So you have multiple ways. This is one of the way too. Okay, so if you write it this way, that's also perfectly fine. The main point is to understand how to approach a bubble sort question. Now whatever method you write in exam, you're gonna get full marks on it if it's working fine. So if it would have been ascending, then the whole one remains only the yep. So if the whole program asked you to sort it ascending wise, only this less than sign would have been a greater than sign. So when I used to see you, so it seemed very and I couldn't understand, but when I used to do it myself, what was the solution for this? So the thing is, that's because you do not practice it. Okay, so now the moment I'm done with this, go open up the same paper, try to solve it on your own, try to do it on your own. Then the next time you do a paper, you get stuck, don't worry. Take that paper, upload it to ChatGPT, tell it that I've done it till this point, but I'm stuck. Give me some hint so that I can move on. And then based upon that hint, you can then follow up procedure. Okay. So yeah, moving on, we don't have a lot of time. So for any other queries regarding this, you may watch the video and then the concept would be clear, inshallah. Okay. Now what I need to do is, I also need to basically sort of, store the name of the person who had the highest, right? So I'm also gonna check the highest one. So how do I do that? So first and foremost, if I have to basically count for the highest, it has to go through the entire array, right? I have to go through the entire array. So now comes the logic point. So you gotta think a bit that if I have to basically go through the entire array and find the person who has the highest, how will I do that? So we have an array which now has all the weights. One thing is that whenever the weight is greater than 3, I would be like, okay, you need to give that person a certificate. But then I need to basically check that which person has the highest weight. Was that the requirement? Let me read the question again. So I output the member names and the pick weights with the 2 heaviest picks and identify them as best in the group and second best in the group. Okay. So now the best part is the logic of why I basically went with this group size logic is that perhaps even if you ignore that, that's going to just make it more confusing. Now if I have to find the highest value, how will I do that? It's pretty much very easy. You know what? So I'm going to basically ensure that it works in a way that the highest one is basically going to have the highest weight and the highest name. So the highest weight, we're going to check it through the entire loop. So I'm going to set a for loop and I'm going to say for counter, let's say 1 to 250. I'm going to have 2 variables. The first variable is going to store their name, and then the second one is basically going to store their weight. So I'm going to say highest name, highest weight. Okay, highest weight. So we're going to assign it values. So the name could be something like empty at this point, and then the weight could be something like the weight of the very first person. Okay, so the weight of the very first person would be what? Picked weight. picked weight, whatever the value at position number 1 is, take that value and put it up here. Similarly, you need to do the same thing for the second highest one. Okay, so I need to keep on doing the same thing for the second highest one. Now the best part is that the current code which I am writing, that's not in the marking scheme. So this is just to confirm and validate it to you that it's not necessary that your code needs to be the same as that of the marking scheme. If it does the work, you're good to go. So second highest name, again, that is going to be empty. And then second highest weight, that might be something like second highest weight, and that might be something like, again, we might assign it the value of, let's say, picked weight, again value number, but like let's assign it the value 100 at this time. So okay, we can assign it any value at this point, so you might assign it something like 100 or 1000, let's say. Okay, now I'm gonna make a for loop which is gonna run for all the people. So I'm gonna run a for loop for count, for counter, let's say 1 to 250 or 1 to group size. What I want you to do is, first and foremost, try to find the person who got the highest. Okay, so you try to find the comment, the person who got the highest. How will I check that? I'm going to check that if picked weight, if the picked weight of the person, if the picked weight of that person counter is basically greater than that of the highest weight, okay, of the first person weight. Okay, so of the highest weight, if it is, then what I want you to do is that in the highest weight I want you to put this person's name and value. So then in the highest weight I want you to put the weight of the person who has the weight of picked weight lifted. Okay, picked weight. Sir, why quotation marks? Where did I use quotation marks? Quotation marks just to indicate that it's empty, it has nothing inside it, it's empty at this point. Okay, thank you so much, Hashir. So yeah, you do this and then you do the same for the name, right? So highest name. And now if I have to find the name at this position, how do you do that? You go to the pickers name array. So you go to the pickers name array, and whatever the position is, oh by the way, this was incomplete, this is going to be counter, and this is also going to be counter. Okay, and then you're going to put this up here, and once you're done with this, so we don't need to find the highest since we already sorted descending, so the first person has the highest weight. But that didn't come into my mind. Ahmad is correct, by the way. Ahmad just got it perfectly fine, by the way. We are sort of implementing a longer logic, but this will also perfectly fine. Okay, this will also work perfectly fine. But Ahmad just stated a very good point that didn't even come in my mind, but that's the whole logic, right? That when we implement it using this bubble sort, what's going to happen is that this whole array is going to be automatically sorted. So it's going to become 20, 17, 15, 10 and 2. So when I know that it's already sorted, this means that the first person up here is having the highest, and then the second one is basically at the position number 2. So you can rather directly do this too, but if you want to go, you can also do it this way, where the method which I was following was that you find it for the highest, and then you go and then you compare that if the score is basically greater than the next one, but the score is less than the highest score, then you basically say that this is the second highest. But now because Ahmad's point is much better, we're going to skip this up, and rather than doing it this way, we already know that the array has already been sorted. Now I know that this array with the name of picked weight at position number 1 stores the value or the highest weight. So I can say that in this picked highest name, in the highest name, I can basically store the name which is at position number 1. So which is going to be at picked weight position number 1, and then in the highest marks, you might want to put up the highest marks, the highest weight, my bad. A lot of question comes from the marks one, so my mind is literally assigned to that. It's going to be that you go to the picked weight team, my bad, why am I messing it up? The name of the array was what? It's picker name, so it's going to be picker name. So picker name. I'm going to take your questions just a minute, okay? So picked weight is then going to have what? picked weight is then going to have the value at position number 1, and then the same thing is going to be repeated for the second person, because we know that the array has been sorted. Because the array has been sorted, it means that the person at position number 1 has the highest weight, right? Because we are doing it in descending order. So when we are descended the whole array, this value has to be the largest, then this has to be the second largest, and so on. So now this time we're going to do it for the second largest. So what was the name? It was second highest name. So second highest name, and that will be having the value of picker name but at position number 2. And then we're going to have second highest weight, which is what, position number 2. And doing this will basically allow us to find the name of the person who had the highest and not. So now I'm going to basically output their details. So I'm just going to output it up. So I can write output the student or the volunteer, whatever, with the highest or with the heaviest weight. The student with the heaviest weight is, then quotation marks of, comma, name of the student. So highest name. And then I'm also going to be writing the weight. So again, when I want to join two sentences, I'm going to again put quotation marks, and I'm going to write with a weight of, and what's the weight going to be? I'm going to put a comma, and then the weight is highest weight. So I'm just going to write highest weight. Done with this. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing for the second highest weight person. So I'm just going to copy this thing. I'm going to repaste it down here. And this time I'm going to do it. The student with the second. So just assume I'm writing second up here. Okay. Weight is second highest name with a weight of second highest weight. Does it really matter if we use all the pages provided? No, not at all. So first index has the highest, and secondly person has the second highest. Yep. So when you sort an array, when you sort this array, we know, right, that if it's out of order, after it goes through this blue part, it's going to become something like this. So in this, I know that the position number 1, this position number 1 is basically the largest value, and position number 2 is the second largest value. So we can directly grab it from here. So now the thing is, that's the beauty of 15 marker. Okay. So if someone did it this way, which is the shorter method, you're going to get full marks. Okay. You're going to get full marks. But if someone did it the method using, I was going with like the longer one, that's also perfectly fine. Okay, that's also perfectly fine. Sir, what if our indentation is a little off? Don't worry, but try your best as much as you can. Sir, before watching the video, should I read it through your chapter? Yep, please do. So don't we have to write the exact line for highest and second highest written in question? लिखा था ये? किधर लिखा था? And identifies them as best in the group and second. Okay, yeah, you're correct. My bad. Didn't see that. So you're gonna say that the best group is maybe the best group with the heaviest weight is this, and then you can do that the best group with the second best, you can update that second best up here. What was the second one? So read the question clearly. You can see even I sometimes mess it up. Second best in group. So you can just write that up here and you'd be good. Second best group. Okay, so you also added that. So Goku bhai, what's your question? Sir, value assign को blue code से ऊपर कौन से value को assign? जरूरी नहीं है. अगर आप इन values की बात कर रहे हो, so you can assign them anywhere. Okay, it's just that you assign them a value. It's better कि आप पहले कर लो, लेकिन बाद में भी कर सकते हो. It's not mandatory. Okay, yeah, that's what you had to do up here. So now because we know that it's done this way, now I need to do it for the last part, which is certificates. Okay, so I'm gonna count the certificates. Sir, can you make a video on indentation? Because oh Allahu Akbar. No one taught you indentation. That's crazy. Indentation basically refers to this gap which we leave. This gap. You see this one finger space gap which I'm giving? That's what's happening. So all the plan has been discussed at the start. Okay, so you can just go and watch the recording at the start for the stream and you're going to understand it. So now for the certificates, we know that we're just going to check that if it's greater than 3, I'm going to write the name of the person up here, that this person is going to get a certificate in the picker certificate, and I'm going to increment the number of certificate variable. And then at the end, I'm going to just print how many certificates are there going to be. I'm going to upload the notes soon, inshallah. So yeah, so now if I have to do it that way, so I need to make use of a for loop which goes through the entire array and checks it up, right? So I'm going to do something like for let's say number this time, or for, just give me a second. Let me text my message. His call friend. He's calling. So yeah. So for number starting from the first position 1 to the class size, sorry, the group size, what I want you to do is, if the picked weight value for that position num, if that's greater than, why am I using these different names? I'm using this so that this ideology in your brain that it always has to be count or counter or index, that's not mandatory. Okay, so if this is greater than 3, what I want you to put is that in the certificate array name, which was what the certificate array had the name of picker certificate, and in that you want to store the names. So I'm going to go to the picker certificate array. So if this happens, then you go to the picker certificate array, and in that you go to the position of whatever the current position is, or like at that position, what you do is, perhaps, you know what, you won't be following this position, because if you remember, not everybody is going to get a certificate. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to set a different variable which is going to count the number of people who get a certificate. So like person number 1, then person number 2, person number 3. So like there needs to be another index for that, right? So I might have something like a count for that. So I might do something like up here a different count which is just counting the people who got a certificate. So like certificate num, and originally this has the value of what, this has the value of 0. Like for example, that we are only giving how many, we have 0 certificates given at this point. So now you go to the picker certificate, but you go to position number 0. So you go to the first position out there, and in the first position you store the name of the person. So now you go to the first position and you store the name of the person. So you go to the picker name array, but you grab the name from what index? You grab it from the num1. So that whichever weight you are checking, उसी का नाम आपने देख लेना है, उसी बंदे का नाम then you need to put in the picker certificate array. But why am I using a separate number for this? Because let's say if I say that a person is at position number 3, okay, so position number 3 pe we have Mars, but Mars lifted the weight of, let's say, 1.5 kg. Now 1.5 kg is not something which I need to put up here. So I go to position number 4 where I have something like someone like Zishan. Now Zishan lifted 5.7 kg. Now if I directly put number up here, now my array is going to be something like certificate wale mein 1 mein hoga, 2 mein hoga, 3 mein, because Mars did not do anything, it's going to stay empty, and then 4 mein aayega. So this is going to stay empty. Now because this is going to stay empty, I don't want them to be empty. So what I'm doing is that rather than doing it based upon num, I'm going to create a different variable which is going to start from position number 0, then position number 1, position number 2, which is sort of counting the number of people who got the certificate. Okay, so the people who got the certificate, I'm counting it that way, and based upon that model I'm sort of filling it up. So if it is greater than that, then you put the name up there, and then what you do is that this certificate number value gets incremented. So you did certificate num being incremented by 1. So certificate num being assigned with certificate num plus 1, certificate num plus 1, and you keep on doing this. So you have end if, and then you say that you keep on doing this, you go to next index, and once this happens for everything, at the end you're going to see that once everything has been completed, we totally now know that the value of certificate num is basically equal to the value of certificate num is basically equal to the total number of values or names stored up here, right? So it might be storing, and that also tells me the total number of certificates that I need. So if I need extra sheet, I can use the blank page. It's better to get the continuation booklet. How do you use it? So you write continued question, whatever the question, let's say 15, okay, and you write up here continued on extra sheet, and then you clearly mention it there too. And then up here I'm just going to output the statement. So I'm just going to write output, and I'm going to write the total number of certificates are total number of certificates that are required to be printed, are colon, comma, and then we do certificate, and that marks the end of your question. That was everything you had to do in this 15 mark. Clear, everybody? So I'm just going to take 3 to 4 questions, not more than that. Just 3 to 4 questions. Anything that might not be clear. We're going to have a stream tomorrow too. Tomorrow's stream is going to be at 4 p.m. Okay? So be ready, inshallah. 4 p.m. inshallah. Sir, what to do when we have to, guys, इसी क्वेश्चन के रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस हो तो वो बेहतर होगा. सर, व्हाट टू डू व्हेन वी हैव टू पुट आवर मल्टीपल नेम्स इफ टू ग्रुप्स हैव द सेम वेट, इतने कॉम्प्लेक्स आएंगे. सर, हाउ शुड आई प्रिपेयर फॉर माय पेपर टू जस्ट वॉच द रिकॉर्डिंग ऑफ दिस एट द स्टार्ट. सर, ब्लैंक माय टीचर सर ब्लैंक पेज मार्क नहीं होता, इसलिए ये वैसे ही बोले आपके टीचर ब्लैंक पेज मार्क होता है. ब्लैंक पेज पे लिखो मत, गो विद द एक्स्ट्रा बुकलेट, बट आई हैव एग्जामिनर स्क्रिप्ट्स वेयर दे डू मार्क द ब्लैंक स्क्रिप्ट्स, blank pages. Okay, so my one of our TS, he attempted the question on, what do we call it, the blank page, and he got the marks. Sir, why next index? Oh yes, my bad, this has to be why next now. Thank you for correcting me. Next now. Yeah. बारिश, अच्छा बारिश हो रही है बाहर, भाई इधर तो नहीं हो रही. Yeah. Sir, can you send this on the group? I can't send this. Okay, I will send it. So I hope it was helpful and that you guys got to know a bit on to how the 15 markers are to be solved, how are the marks divided, and to be honest, that's the whole logic, that's the whole implementation. Inshallah, we're going to do 3 more such 15 markers, and inshallah they are going to make you allowed to be fully understood with this, so you'll be good to go then, inshallah. Sir, can you make next class on October, November 2025 15 marker? I'm going to upload that. I will not be doing any 25 papers because we are done with all those in the past paper session. So just going to do the papers which we haven't covered in the past paper session. Okay. So yeah. Sir, we'll do paper number 1 wasn't easy, guys. I don't know why you guys are saying it easy. It has to come like every paper 1 is like this. Like the paper which got tested, like almost every other paper number 1 is sort of similar to that difficulty. It's not like something very easy. Okay, the 2 to 3 difficult questions still came up, which allowed you to, lose marks and everything. But yeah, so you cannot sort of say that it was very easy though, but it was relatively better. So we cannot say anything about paper 2 at this point. It might come up to be very easy. We have seen the October, November 2025 papers, the May, June 2025 papers, where what happened was that it came out to be as very easy. So like us case में the threshold went up very high. But yeah, if the paper generally is of normal difficulty, so it's going to be, the threshold is going to be around the normal figures. By the way, I also don't know why you guys did not practice the access level thingy. You had to sort of talk about how there's going to be a specific entry requirement, as in like not everyone would be able to access the stuff. Like a janitor will only be having access to the data of janitor and not that of doctor. You can have an administrator. You can sort of have, what do we call it? You're going to define the access for every user. You had to talk about all these points. नहीं आया इस बार तो क्या होता है एनोटेटेड डायग्राम इतने भी डरावना नहीं था गाइस एक तो आप लोग वैसे भी Sir, if I watch all your videos on P2 will it be enough to get A star given that you do enough practice too? So my classes are only for the content. You need to do the practice on your own, and also there aren't any videos for chapter number 9 and chapter number 10. So if you are scoring 55, but give it your best, you have a good chance to still bagging that A star. So please tell what paper will be sought towards so we can get a printout P by threshold prediction estimate. So tomorrow we're going to solve the, let me see. Let me have a look. So we did the paper 22 earlier on. So we're going to solve the October, November 2024, paper number 21. And the threshold estimate for paper 1 around 45, 46. What about the image conversion? So the image conversion question was that you had to talk about pixels. that that the screen and the image is basically divided into pixel, and that every pixel represent a specific color, and that every color has an equivalent binary code. Okay, and then you basically say that the combination of that has been transmitted into the colors code, and then that being converted into binary, and that's how your computer processes it. So why did you add the names in the picker certificate array? Because the question asked us to do that. If you read the question mentioned that you store the names of all the members who will receive a certificate. So that's the reason. ADC अगर आप image conversion वाले बोल रहे तो if I'm not wrong, I might be wrong though, सही है, I'm not fully sure though, but I guess ADC वहाँ पे valid ही था. Sir, please latest 15 mark. That might not be possible. I'm not sure if ADC will be a correct point or not. It might be, it might not be. I'm not sure about that. Okay. But if I was going to write it, I would have done it this way. Okay. Because generally this question was unique. But if I'm not wrong, I would have answered it this way, the way I mentioned it. But guys, that's it for today. It's 8 p.m. Take care, everybody. See you guys inshallah tomorrow at 4 p.m. and Allah Hafiz.